Well, hello, I'm Michael with M&M Railways here on YouTube, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make and paint distant mountains that actually add to the scene of the model train layout. I don't want to paint them on the wall. I want to make them out of wood so they look like they're distant mountains that are sticking out from the wall. So why don't we go in my living room and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Let's go right now. I'll show a little video on what we're doing here. As you can tell, we have pulled the fireplace back away from the wall, and I have taped a mountain area on the wall that we're going to use for a background. And as you can tell right here, I've transferred this pattern to printing paper, and I'm going to put it onto that piece of wood. And I'll share with you what we're going to be doing after we get that done. Well, now as you can tell, I've cut that pattern out and I've traced it onto my piece of wood, as you can tell right there. Now what we want to do is we want to take that pattern off, and we want to mark this canyon wall on the front of it, because that's going to be built out of foam and that's going to come forward in our display. So I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll cut this piece out and we'll be back in a little bit. Now as you can tell, I've got the back distant mountain in black. I've got the front canyon wall drew out in red, and another distant mountain there in black. Now I'm going to take my jigsaw and I'm going to cut this pattern out, and then I'm going to paint this to keep those distant mountains blackish gray. And I'll show you how we're going to do that coming up next. Well, my friends, as you can see, I'm now in my living room, and I've put the plywood mountain that I built on my conductor stand here. I actually use that for other things in my office. But what I'm doing is I'm modeling canyon walls. As you can see on the layout up there, there's the tape on the wall that represents the back mountain, and then that foam will be a canyon wall for the front. So I actually have a picture here that I'm going to be using as um, a sample of what I'm going to be doing, and I'll put a picture of this on the screen in front of me here in a little bit so you can get a better idea of what I'm going to be doing. So you can see that on the screen now. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to make that foam that's back there look like the forward ground of the sandstone. And the background, I want to paint it a little bit lighter colors to make it look like it's a little bit further away. And I'll put that right there so you can see that I'm looking at that. Well, I went to Hobby Lobby and I picked up several colors of paint that I think will pretty much do this style for me. So I'll give you a rundown of the paints that I'm using. The first thing I'm going to do is use a slate gray, because when I look at this mountain here, these canyon mountains, maybe that's the Grand Canyon, who knows where that's at, but I see some gray outlines. I see where I've indicated my 1-inch marks at. I see some gray highlights in there. So I'll be using that highlight. This color here is called cocoa. It's kind of a lighter brown color. So I see some distant light brown colors. This color is cinnamon, and I think it'll blend in good. And this color here is teddy bear brown. So there's just a touch of some browns in there. And like I said, I'm trying to match these distant hills back here. Not the distant mountains, but the distant canyons. So that's kind of what I want to see. And I know that I've brought these peaks up a little bit to look like mountains. But once they're landscaped and they set on there, they're going to look more like frontal mountains. You can see some of these canyon walls here in this picture they kind of go up at an angle and then they get flat at the top. So if I was to have the rest of that contour, you'll see that that's kind of flat. So I'm going to try to duplicate these distant mountains right here in my painting. And what I have is I have a little painter's palette, and one of these days I'll show you the mural that's in the office where I do my business at. But anyway, I've got several holders here for the paint and several flat ones, and then I put my thumb through there. So I got several brushes that I paint with. I've got a kind of a line brush here that I use for doing like flat work, so I can kind of come down in here and paint on that. And then I got a little bit wider, more narrower flat brush that we'll use to add some of them colors in there. Then I got just a bit of a flatter, more wider brush that allow me to do some more details. So I'm just going to turn my back to you a little bit, let you look over my shoulder as I begin to paint. I'll look over my shoulder once in a while to make sure that you guys are watching me pretty good, and I think that's pretty good. I can rotate this towards me a little closer. So you can tell where the red lines are. The red lines are actually indicating the foam on the wall back there. So you can see the foam that I put back there. It's kind of representing that. So I'm going to kind of start establishing a little bit of a border along these lines here. And if I look distant far back there, I can see those lines that are coming across. They're a little bit of a grayish color. So I'm going to put some gray on my palette here. And then I'm just going to come along, and I'm going to start at the top because I don't want to put my hand in my paint. And I'm making this out of probably just an 1/8 inch paneling. As you can tell, it's really, really, really thin, but it gives me the look of the distant mountains. So I'm basically painting this area in right here at the top with this gray. I want this to represent a shadow line that's off in the distance in the back. So I'm basically going to paint this gray, and I hope you can see that. I'll zoom in a little bit in the editing here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. And I put the red lines on there to indicate forward mountains, and you can tell I'm working on the side of the layout over here where I don't have foam coming up that way. But I did represent the color of the red to indicate that that's a forward mountain made out of foam. I have the center one made. That's about all I have made so far. But when I do the other side, I'm going to be putting a wing going that way. So I will be adding that foam later. But I'm going to paint across the top of that just because it might be revealed. So when I actually built this and put it in on the wall to see what it looked like, I was actually noticing the top of the wood in some of the areas that I'm adjusting right now. So I'm just going to pull this back so I can touch this base right here so I don't get paint all over my easel. And so this part here is seen above the foam, so I'm going to go ahead and throw some paint, some gray paint for the outline above there. When I get ready to do the foam, I'm going to do a carving of rock outcroppings, and you'll be able to see that rock outcropping a little bit. So not a lot of this is going to be seen behind there, but I want, in case it is, I want to be able to paint like 1 inch down on some of this. All right, that basically gives me my border for where my distant mountains are. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this liner. That's why I like this thin brush, is because now I'm just going to take and run it across my 1-inch line that I built or drew on here. So this represents the water lines from the water that actually made the canyon. So as you know, the name of my layout is Canyon Flats on this side. So that kind of represents the canyon lines of the water that I see there. And like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and continue making these lines. And then we'll switch to another brush and we'll add some other colors in there. But right now I'm just going to worry about this distant mountain here and kind of try to match a little bit of it on the other side of this peak over here. And I'm not worried about so much trying to make a straight line, because if you notice things out in the wilderness, they really aren't straight lines. And I think being I'm not going to do this foam on this side, I'm going to go ahead and run this line out, just kind of random there. And then I'll leave that transparency of that red line there, so when I do the foam on my phase 1, part A, I guess you call that, I'll know exactly where that line's at. But right now I don't want to add the foam just yet, because I want to build my my plywood over there. So now, because this is coming down at an angle, I'm looking at my picture and I'm seeing that there's kind of a gray shape over the top of this line coming down. So if I do happen to see over the top of this a little bit, you will see more of the gray shadows than you do the red line. That's kind of what I wanted, but I'm going to leave that transparent red line in there, so when I get ready to do that foam on the other side, I kind of know where it's at. So I'm just going to come up here and represent a shadow above that red line. So when I add my foam to it, it'll cover up that red line. So basically that's the idea of the pattern that I'm going to start with. And so I don't waste too much of your time, I'm going to pause the video in certain places and add some color. When I'm adding the color, I'll come back and show a little bit more of that on camera. But if you're going to make distant canyon walls, just do some 1-inch lines. 1-inch line actually represents about a 16-foot cliff area. So if we were going to go by 1 inches, this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that would be 70 feet tall in actual measurements and in scale. I'll be back in a little bit. Now what I'm going to do, got my gray pretty much painted to represent the wash lines from the water that made this canyon. So now I'm going to take my darkest color, and I'm going to try to come on the, it looks like the shadow is maybe coming from this side. So that's the darker side, and the lighter side is going to be on this way. And I'm going to follow that suit all the way down. In the picture that you're seeing on the screen next to me, it's showing black for the highlights, but I'm going to use different colors because I don't want to put so much black in there. I'll come back at a later time and maybe do some black, but I'm going to see how this looks just to represent. This is my darkest color. So I'm going to come off of the left side and just make a couple of little, this is teddy bear brown, and I'm going to come off of the left side a little bit and just make some touches coming down from where I think this is going to look best at to represent where the sun might be hitting it at. So the center part could be about right there somewhere. And I'm just going to fade that back in there. Kind of bring it down into my gray. And then it looks like on this one side, most of that is going to be in the dark. So let me just kind of bring this way. And when I was cutting this out with my jigsaw, it kind of got in there, caught some of that wood. I think that's a pretty good thing because it gives some of the depth of this distant canyon mountain here. So I want the gray to show. So I'm just highlighting this dark area here. And I want to paint up and down mostly because I painted the gray sideways. I don't know if it really matters, but when I come and start doing my highlights and shadowing it, it will matter. So basically, I'm establishing where the darkness is at. And here in a little bit, we'll establish more of a lighter area. And you can see that some of the blonde part of that wood is starting to show through there, and that's okay because that represents lights and darks together. It's kind of why I chose this blonde wood to use as my distant drop on my mountains. So that's starting to look pretty good. So this could represent this valley right here, where I'm painting these distant hills at. And it looks like it's going to start, the sun's going to start cascading. So I'm going to paint. Might be a good idea to let the paint dry. I'll try not to rest my hand on that gray down there. No, this is time consuming, but I just wanted you to see just a little bit of what I was doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this part right here, and then I'll come back on the camera and let you kind of see the changes again. As you can tell, I've went down with that darkest color all the way down to the valley here. So I'm going to take my next darkest color, which is cinnamon, and I'm going to come on this side of it. But I'm not going to clean my brush or my palette because I'm going to feather them together. And so when I look at that, it's getting darker on this side, and then it comes light because the sun could be hitting it from the eastward setting. So I'm going to take this cinnamon color, and I'm just going to brush into that. And maybe that one's all in the light. And I'm going to keep feathering it. But this time I'm going to bring in a different color and feather in on the other side of that, which is the lighter color. We want to go from dark to light. As Bob Ross says, there's no mistakes, only happy beginnings. So basically, I'm growing this sun into the lighter stuff that will be on the other side. And now I'm streaking it sideways, as you can see. But now I want to blend it into the brown that I put on there. And as you can tell, that's making a better transition. And the reason I didn't want to clean my brush and get rid of the brown is I'm going to feather that together here. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here in a minute. You see this line right here is more, you can see the discoloration. So I'm going to put a little bit of brown and mix it in with my color here. I just lost my picture on my phone. That's okay. So now I mix the two colors together on my brush, and now you can see that they're blending together in that center area. So let me come back here with my lighter color again, and let's say this whole area now, streaking that way, is this lighter, medium shade of light. So we go from light to medium to dark, and then we blend the two in. And I'm going side to side now because I realize that that's kind of the way the grain of the wood's going. And I think it's going to blend in and make a nice transition from my final product. And when I'm all said and done with it, I'm probably going to go spray this with a clear varnish outside of where I've painted it at. So it seals it. Now I'm going to take and mix my brown with that lighter color. And I'm just going to feather this color together so it kind of blends in on my area. As you can kind of tell, now it's looking like the sun is blending into it. And let's take this kind of this way now. See that gray in there helps it to build its translucent color of the water lines that are in there. I'm going to dab back into my brown a little bit, and I'm just going to blend across that color to make that come from light to dark. I might take a little fine brush and blend in that gray a little bit more, touch a little bit more on my brown. So now you're getting the idea of kind of shadowing that area in and kind of fading it along there. So let me take my lightest color now and put it in my other thing, and this is called Cocoa. So I'm going to put this over here, and we're going to do the same thing with the three colors. So I'm going to take the lightest color I have and blend it in before that paint dries. Now you can see the transition of using light in the dark. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit more of my color and blend in the transition. But you know, you kind of want a good transition there because it's showing a different layer of the mountain. Well, now I'm going to move my chair a little bit, slide that over, and you can watch me paint that. Checking my time here, my friends. Okay, we're going to go brown. And it might seem like I'm doing this opposite, but I'm really not. If you remember that the sun is setting in the west, which could be that direction, and this is darker, or maybe the sun is the other direction, who knows. So I'm going to take my medium brown, start here, blend this in. Works better if you're using wet paint on all the colors, as you can see there. Now I'm going to use the lightest color to finish blending in area. And that's a pretty good transition. So we're going to keep doing that to show that this valley is getting darker. I'll go over that gray later on. A good transition. Now let's go with the lighter color. So a little bit of transition goes a long ways. And blend them across. Now we're going to go with the lightest color. Very good transition of colors there. All right, go again a little bit more. We're transitioning into the valley now, so our colors are disappearing into this mountain that's going to stick out with the foam. Again, try to wipe off that color. So now we're basically done with that brown, that darker brown. We're going to finish this out over here with the two lighter colors, but we're going to keep going further with this middle color. Part of my cats there, they're playing in the background, or actually my wife's cats. Such a small space. Let's go ahead and put some brown right here, some of the cinnamon. And that lighter color of blonde wood, actually, I like that in there. I think that makes a nice transition. Now I'm going with the cocoa. We're going to finish out the blend. Now you can't hardly tell I put any of that in there. See how awesome and cool that looks? And a little bit more of the brown, the lighter brown. Here, I'm going to blend it right back in there in case any of that could be seen off the edge. And we're making this a little bit more, so we're going to fade in that really cocoa into the cinnamon. So now we got the cinnamon in with the cocoa. All right, my friends, that's a pretty much of how I wanted that to look. And I will come back at a later time and I will blend some black in there, and that'll make that look pretty good. We'll be back later. Now, my friends, I'm looking at this picture again. I'll put it on the screen so you can see it as well. I'm seeing some black areas of more higher shadows in those areas. So I'm going to try to duplicate those a little bit in my painting here. Pardon me, I just dropped my brush. All right, so I put a little black on my paint easel here, my paint tray. Just a little dab, because I'm not going to need much. So I'm seeing more dark, like in the sections of where the shadows are getting a little darker at. So I know that there's a ridge going to be right here. So I'm just going to step out in faith and go up this ridge here with some shadow lines. Just because there's another hill that's coming into that. So I'm not going to get too excited about it because, like I said, we have another foam canyon wall coming up that way. Okay, so now if I look at that, I'm just seeing some areas of lines coming down in certain areas. There's no actual shape to them. Just showing maybe where that break is at. Maybe some of them are a little wider in areas to represent that there's a little bit of a break, maybe in that wall going back in there. And being this is kind of where I want it to look like it's going back there a little further. It could be a good representation of a valley in there where that's rotating. Let's make that a little bit more of a revealing shadow there coming all the way down to make it look like it's going back. And being this is distant, let's put another really, let's just reach out in faith here and let's do another really light shadow coming down. Maybe that represents that there's another break in the wall going back. And you would want to color over that gray because it looks like it's going back at an angle. See what I mean there? When we put it on the wall and to give you the full view, let's say there's one over here. Let's just go really light. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. But being we got a mountain breaking right here, let's do just a shadow of a hint that there's a further distant over this gray. I'm getting a phone call, unknown name, unknown number. I don't normally answer those, so I'm just going to ignore it. So now I've got the looks of a distant mountains there, and it looks like these are going back and further going back. Let's just maybe darken that up a little bit there to make it look like it's really back in the distance. And I think that's looking pretty good for my camera. So, but some of those buttes are coming this way as well. So let's do this. Let's make it look like that's maybe a forward face of a butte. And I think that looks pretty good on camera. It makes it look like there's a little valley. So I'm basically going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to highlight this back part of this slope here. I'm just going to make some just some jagged attempts, and I'm not really worried about the neatness of it because the terrain of the ground could be casting shadows that look like that. All right, now I'm seeing that maybe this is cutting down. If I'm trying to do that top mountain, maybe this is cutting kind of like this. Good, my friends, I think I'm going to leave it at that. We can, maybe there's one coming down here. Discoloration a little bit. Let's make that jute come out there a little bit. All right, my friends, I think I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm going to put it back there after I spray it, after it's dried. And it's kind of giving me the shape that there's some little, maybe there's some little canyons that are living back in a couple of these areas. Just some gentle kind of dry brushing. Kind of make it resemble some kind of a pathway. As you can tell, I kind of just touched it up, and that really just really added it in there. Let's kind of do that over here. Let's just step out in faith, and this kind of I'm going to come down here and kind of dry my brush off, and let's just kind of wet brush this, make it look like there's more detail going on. Take some of that wetness out of there. And that kind of gives it a blended area. Pull this back here a little bit. As I said, my friends, you got to step out in faith when you're painting and just see kind of how the cookie crumbles along the way. If it's overkill, you know, if you don't like it down the road, you can always go back and let's use our hand to kind of highlight that a little bit. All right. But who knows what's back in there, you know? Maybe there's a canyon that lives back in there a little bit. Let's take a little bit of this gray, since we got some black already on here. Let's try to recapture our lines in here a little bit. We don't know what lives back in here. Could be kind of a, who knows what's back in there. Now it gives it a little distant look. Let's kind of run our black and gray mix over that valley there. Give it some depth. Get a little bit more of this gray on this side. Then we'll go with a little bit more of a darker gray. Make it disappear. Then you just got to get back to kind of where you guys are at and take a look at it. I think except for that big old spot in the middle, I think where it looked out pretty good. But I see some of that stuff going on in that paint, that picture that I'm looking at too. So let's give this, make it look like we did it on purpose and it wasn't just an accident. All right, my friends, there's some gray on there. Kind of blend that in, and who knows what's back in there and what that looks like, you know. Who knows what lives back in there. Let's go back over there and touch that little spot up. Line that up that side of that center part. Feather that out just a little bit. All right, now it looks like we've got some distant turns, and it makes it look like there's even some, oh, I like that. I like that. See how that blends in, and it kind of makes it look like there's another pass going back in there. Let's do that over here. Let's just step out in faith, and let's just make that look like that's feather it. Just never know what is back in there. That breaks down that black and doesn't make it look so to look more like a side of a hill going back or something. Well, my friends, I'm about to call this finished. Put some spray on there and put it on the wall. You guys see it. Like I said, I'm trying to represent some distant canyon mountains. So we're going to call that good, and I'll see you when we put it on the wall. Well, all in all, it's not too bad of a paint job for distant mountains. Maybe up a little close, it's a little bit extravagant. But remember, the foam is going to come up this little ridge right here, as you can tell, and follow that. But let's pan out as we look at this. So I think ultimately, from a distance, that mountain back there, the Canyon Wall Mountains, looks pretty good. My friends, in the next video, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be installing those risers on that side to bring that curve up to the height of this, as you see I've already done here. That's coming up in the next video. Well, friends, thanks for watching me paint that background mountain, and I'm developing that, and that was a pretty long video, I know. My wife thought it would be pretty cool if I would pan the camera and show you the mountains that we did in the office. So those are pretty cool mountains. It's actually got a gondola riser that comes up to it, as you can see there. That's part of the artistic work. And probably after I get my my foam canyon wall covered, I might touch up that back. I might not. I don't know yet. But my friends, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see a notification come by whenever any new videos are out. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and maybe comment below if you would have painted those canyon distant mountains a different way. Leave me a comment in the descriptions below here. And we'll be back in another video as we join the riser together on both sides of the table. See you in the next video.